Hi everyone, welcome to today's live. Let me really quickly try to get my other co-hosts on here. Okay. All right. So we're bringing Claire in. I think she's being beamed up as we speak. Oh, there she is.
Hi, Sheridan. Hi.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
I am very good. I think we're just waiting on Libby. I'm not sure when she'll be joining us, but hopefully she'll just request it and we can just beam her into the conversation. Uh, okay. Oh, also, I'm one of your hosts. My name is Sheridan. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm an engagement manager currently in San Francisco, but kind of in the California region in general.
And I am Claire. I am based out of our Boston office. Really excited to be here to chat some pop culture with Sheridan and Libby when she's able to join. One of my favorite topics to talk about healthy and unhealthy relationship behaviors through, and really excited for you all to share some of the things that you've been watching and any healthy or unhealthy behaviors that you've noticed in TV shows or movies around you.
Yeah, I think it's just so natural. Like the second I learned the 10 signs, I started seeing them in every TV show, every music video, every song, every movie I was watching. And it's just, I don't know, it's a good way to learn for sure. Sometimes you have to turn your brain off a little bit. I don't know if you get that, Claire, but I feel like I can't watch without a One Love lens.
Yeah. And for me, I really like to make sure that I remind myself that it's okay to still enjoy those movies and TV shows, even if they're showing unhealthy behaviors. Not necessarily saying I can't watch this because there's manipulation involved, but instead saying, hey, I actually really wouldn't want to be in that relationship or that friendship. And, what does that actually look like if somebody I know is going through that?
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, there's Libby.
Hello. Technology problems on my end, as always. Hi, everybody.
Hello. Libby, your sound is a little wonky. I'm not sure why that is.
All right. Is this better?
Yes, much better. Perfect.
What did I miss? Fill me in.
Oh, we're just talking about not being able to watch anything without the One Love lens, but also giving ourselves freedom to just like things instead
Yeah.
of like dissecting them the whole time.
Yes, I actually was visiting a One Love club last week, and we were talking about how once you know the 10 signs, you can't watch TV any other way. And sometimes it's hard you want to like cheer for unhealthy couples, and you have this inner turmoil. So,
Yeah. And if anyone on the call, or I guess it's not a call, on the live, is curious about what the 10 signs are, I will use my screen since I think I'm biggest on here to devote to putting this nice little image up. You
I think
can't see all of them.
It
I think they're backwards.
backwards. Yep.
It's okay. We can read them off. Should we read them off?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So the 10 signs of an unhealthy relationship, we've got intensity, possessiveness, manipulation, isolation, sabotage, belittling, guilting, volatility, betrayal, and deflecting responsibility. And then for our healthy signs, so the things that we want to strive for, look for, hope for, do more of, we've got comfortable pace, trust, honesty, independence, respect, equality, kindness, fun, healthy conflict, and taking responsibility.
Yes, and today I think we're going to focus a lot on unhealthy, maybe teasing a possible second part of this live to do the healthy signs. But please, Libby, Claire, and I have put together some examples, but if you have some throughout the course of this live that you're like, I want them to talk about this, if we have watched it, we will happily talk about it. So please go ahead and comment away. I also just want to give a spoiler alert all around. If you're on here and you really don't like a spoiler, maybe this is not the live for you. We want you to be here, but we also don't want to spoil any shows or movies for you.
Yes, always important. Um, Thank you, Libby, for reading out those 10 signs. If you are just joining us and you want to have a handy visual of the 10 signs, we would love for you to visit the Join One Love website, joinonelove.org, where you can find all of those to sort of follow along with or just have for yourself in your day-to-day life.
All right, should we jump in?
Let's go.
Yeah.
All right.
What have you all been watching? Where have you seen some 10 signs of unhealthy relationships in the pop culture you've been consuming? Anything jump out to you, either of you, right up front?
Ooh, we had a great conversation the other day on our Slack channel about Friends and all the unhealthy behaviors on Friends. I just think that We Were on a Break is the ultimate deflecting responsibility. Like, come on, Ross. You have to talk about what's going on in your relationship. You can't just say, like, we were on a break, so therefore it doesn't matter what I did. And to keep coming back to it over and over and over again shows absolutely zero growth in the character. I feel very strongly about this.
Clearly. I also think it's important to note that, realistically, their relationship might have been a bit of a gray area, but it doesn't actually take away from the hurt that Rachel felt. So when we talk about deflecting responsibility or not taking responsibility, I think that's a big part of it. He might not have intended to hurt Rachel, but he actually did. And the jokes and the way it came up over the next couple of years, you could tell it was still something that was a sore spot that didn't feel great, that probably hurt a lot and took some time to get over. So all those are really important pieces of accepting responsibility and not deflecting, which I would agree with Libby's hot take on this about.
Yeah, and I actually became aware when we were like discussing this whole live situation that there are two camps who are like, we were on a break was like valid, we were on a break was not valid. But I think you said it exactly, Claire. Like, if somebody that you like claim to have loved in a relationship quite recently is really hurt by something you did, like, just take some responsibility for that. Like, apologize, say something. Don't just scream, we were on a break.
The last actually really does stand out on a rewatch. I would have noticed the first couple times I watched it, or watching it before, really learning about love and the work that we're doing on healthy and unhealthy behaviors.
Mm-hmm. This couple too is such an example of one that the show wants you to root for. They're on again, off again. She gets off the plane at the end, right? Like, you want them to end up together. And this is one where I watched, I'm like, my one love heart is telling me, like, don't cheer for them. But my like 90s kid heart is like, Ross and Rachel forever, right? So it is kind of this like duality of watching TV. But they're actually one we could probably play 10 signs bingo with them and see all the unhealthy, but then also like almost all the healthy at some point. So they do have some great moments. So I definitely agreed on the gray area for these two.
Yeah. And when you say sort of like, particularly people rooted for them over 10 years, right? Right at the start of the show, we established Ross had this big crush on Rachel, and for years and years. When I think of a show from, my younger years that I watched and maybe rooted for a potentially problematic couple, I always think of Gossip Girl. Or end goals for my little high school heart. And on a rewatch, I just have this moment of, I could never be in that relationship. One, I would struggle to treat a partner that way, but also if I had been treated in a lot of the ways that we see the two of them navigate their relationship in, I just wouldn't feel very good about myself. I feel like I'd constantly be overthinking it and questioning myself and questioning my actions. And those are really big red flags for me.
Yeah.
I don't know if I stand out with that, like, you want to for that mentality.
Totally.
Absolutely. I was gonna say, I feel like the amount of just like like you could count them all on your fingers, like manipulation, betrayal, sabotage, like the fact that how normalized that is across every relationship in Gossip Girl is so fascinating. I'm like, I mean, I've never lived on the Upper East Side. I've never been a teen there, but I mean, that's got to be rough if that's how it really is.
Yeah.
I think it's not, but you never know.
Well, I also think these shows too, like, they portray kids or teenagers as much older and having like actually being adults. And then when I was in high school, I was like, I still had to like ask for a ride, and like I lived in a town, not a city. So sometimes it's hard to connect with characters because they live in such a different world than you. But I always remember, like, it doesn't matter the behavior. talk about the behavior, not the person, right? All the behaviors that we see in these shows are things that we can all connect to, even if we're not having lunch on the steps of the Met.
But
Yeah.
I started watching these shows, Friends and Gossip Girl, and a whole bunch of others before I ever really started exploring what romantic relationships were like. So for quite a while, these were the best representation that I had about what relationships should be like. It
Mm-hmm.
impacted in some ways how I saw my friends in relationships, how I thought people were supposed to treat each other, what it meant to be in those partnerships. So I also think it's really important to point out that those what we're seeing on TV can actually really how we view what's supposed to be normal in relationships. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Not just exclusively to these two, but I jealousy really normal? Is manipulating somebody to get your way or testing somebody to see if they respond the way you want them to, or to see if you can trust them actually normal? I
Yeah.
No, it's not, but that's what I thought it was.
Well, there's a lot of recent shows too that have come out in the last like year or so. Like, To All the Boys I Loved Before, it's a movie. Never Have I Ever, that are again are take place in high school age characters, but we see so many unhealthy behaviors that are glorified, and we're like, oh, I can't imagine if I were in high school watching these shows, I would be wondering like, is this what a relationship looks like? Is this what I'm supposed to do? Like the amount of volatility across the board in these is confusing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think like just the amount that drama is played up, it makes you think like, oh, I need my life to be this dramatic. But it's like
Right?
you just enjoy that on the screen and then completely separate that from your life, which is much harder said than done. Or I guess much easier said than done. Um, what was I lost my train of thought. It's happening.
Just thinking about all the movies.
Fun. And I would argue that, a lot of the things that we've been talking about here all seem to fall into a very similar category. We've had a couple sitcoms that we brought up, but a lot of these are supposed to be lighter dramas, for lack of a better term, maybe like a teen drama, like a Gossip Girl. I would even say Netflix is moving into that category, but there's this interesting overlap with pop culture that goes, or uh, rom-coms and pop culture that goes along with that, all the way back to 16 Candles and Pretty in Pink and some of those first movies that were really geared towards teenagers, how those morphed in the 2000s. You had She's the Man, Mean Girls, some of these movies with romantic undertones that thrived on the drama of will they or won't they, how do they actually end up getting together, and those things have now been developed a lot in Netflix and in similar TV shows, one of which, a couple things to point out: the TV shows are available for consumption all at once. You're not waiting week after for the episodes to come out or sort of follow along over the course of a full 9 months to see what happens that season. I think that's a really interesting phenomenon for how I absorb some of this. You on Netflix is one that just came out for the season 3. For those of you who watch that I just one can't get enough of and am simultaneously horrified by.
Mm-hmm.
Joe and You really checks every unhealthy behavior that we have on that list, and honestly create some of his own additional ones. But we can watch 10 of these episodes with this really disturbing behavior in one day if we want to. And it can really, for me, overwhelm sort of this idea of, oh my God, like this is a lot. This is really heavy.
Mm-hmm. Well, it also makes the relationship seem much more intense than it maybe even was intended to be by the showrunners. If normally you had to wait every week to watch an episode, and now you can watch a season in a weekend, concept of time goes out the window. So you're watching it and you're like, was that a comfortable pace? Like, I don't even know anymore. Yeah, I think a lot about like You has a lot of intensity that is made to feel even more intense if you just watch it in one sitting.
Yeah, I hadn't really thought about that. Like just the intensity that's inherent in the way that we consume like all media today,
Mhm.
really. Like binge watching was not, I mean, unless you wanted to buy a bunch of DVDs back in the day.
Yeah.
I used to order the Netflix DVDs,
Oh, same.
um, but yeah, and I've fallen behind on You, I have to admit. I was like too disturbed by watching the first season. But I heard that I mean, and this might be a spoiler to people who haven't seen it, but like in the third season, he and his partner move like across the country to get away from like their old life or whatever, what have you. And like, I feel like that's something we talk about with not only with intensity, but isolation.
Mm-hmm.
Really like pointed behavior of like, I'm going to move you away from other people you know, or we're going to like move to a town so that you feel isolated like from your support system, which is wild.
As well. And it's so, I mean, even watching this now, as we're starting to come out of some of the quarantine elements, but like the layers and layers of isolation, I can't imagine if my partner was just like, oh, we're moving away. Like, you don't get a say in this. This is what we're doing. Like, and also with the intention of taking you away from the people that you love and care about. I mean, that's like textbook isolation right there.
It is, and it's really hard. I mean, like I said, I feel like EU covers every one of our 10 signs, but what I was really struck by in this third season was the isolation that happened off screen. They sort of chose to move and have this family and be married all in these steps that we as viewers didn't get to see. And then as their problems within the relationship start unfolding, there was some really intentional manipulation that happened, saying you have to do this in order for our relationship to be stronger, or we need to do something together that goes against I mean, the whole show goes against social norms, so I'm really hesitant to point out one specific behavior, but it was sort of this idea of in order to blend in or to be normal or to make our relationship work, you have to give up equity. And so there's almost really manipulative undertone to the isolation that I haven't seen so well done in a show in a long time.
Yeah. And it's wild to even say like that's well done, but
Yeah.
oh, and I see something saying manipulation from both Joe and Love.
Yeah.
I can't do that. I don't know. Have you two seen the third season?
Yes, and I will totally agree with that comment. Love is equally as manipulative as Joe in the third season, if not more so. Probably could argue it both ways if we wanted to. So really making sure that we are being clear that this is a behavior that can go both ways, multiple genders, and has no sort of set, this is how it happens.
Yeah.
I think it's a really important addition to this conversation.
Well, a thing that we see on TV and movies a lot as well is this idea of like, oh, well, if one person's manipulative, if the other person's back, then like we're even, it's fine. But two wrongs don't make a right, right? Like two people doing unhealthy behaviors does not magically cancel out and make a healthy, functional relationship. So sometimes we can feel if somebody's being manipulative, our like gut instinct tells us that that's how we should respond. But we at One Love, who get to talk about this stuff all day, every day, know that that actually is just going to make everything a whole lot worse, and that it's really hard to reestablish honesty if both people are constantly being manipulative as a way of like trying to level the playing field, but it doesn't work.
Yeah, and that can be such a hard instinct to fight of like this person like hurt me or wronged me. Like I'm gonna like lash back out at them or I'm gonna thing, you know, whether it's like belittle them or like do something volatile to like get back. But it
Mm-hmm.
is really like, I don't know, leaning into the healthy signs or at least learning them and just knowing like, oh, like I can take comfortable pace with myself and just be like, you know, they sent me this text that made me really mad and I'm going to take a few minutes to just like think about it, or I'm going to take a few hours or a few days. Yeah.
I will add in here though, in really unhealthy or abusive relationships, being caught in that cycle can be really hard to break out of. So we do want to just say that if it feels like that is a pattern that's happening, that those manipulative or behaviors are really in response to ongoing patterns of unhealthy and abusive behavior, we would encourage you to reach out for help, reach out to some trained professionals, ask for help, ask some questions that we might not have otherwise, because we know that that is really, really difficult to break out of. So I do just want to flag that as well.
Yeah, that's true. It's not always available to somebody to react in a healthy way. Like sometimes you need to act in unhealthy ways to like protect yourself or, oh, hi Grace, thanks for the heart. Yeah, or things like that. And yeah, I think that's a really good point.
Mm-hmm.
Well, on a little bit of a lighter topic, it is now the holiday season, which means that we are being blessed on all sorts of different platforms with the classic holiday movies that are coming out. I think that could be a really fun to have some lighthearted conversations about what I like to call holiday movie tropes tend to look like. We're seeing some creativity come out some places, but there are some really common storylines, patterns, things that come across in traditional rom-coms and particularly these holiday specials that I'd love to hear your thoughts on if either of you have watched recently.
Yeah. Oh, do you want to go?
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, the whole I've talk about intensity. Like, every single one of these holiday movies is like, quick. It's December 1st. You got to bring someone home by December 24th. Go. Like, that's terrifying.
The perpetual lady or gentleman or non-binary folk, yes, absolutely. Most of these movies also have relationships that happen really, really quickly. First, and by Christmas, I am in love with somebody. I snap a bunch, kind of crazy.
One of the ones that or actually there were two I thought of for this sort of like holiday trope category. Like, I don't know if anyone saw Holiday last year.
Yeah.
Yes.
One is like an example again of that intensity of like, I need a fake partner to bring to all of these holiday engagements, and then it becomes this strange like manipulation of their own like family or their own friend group to be like, yeah, me and this person are together, we have been dating, we are in love. So I mean, that was a great movie, I also loved it, but
But that also brings up a really interesting phenomenon about the societal emphasis we place on being in a romantic relationship. You know, there's that joke, the questions you always get asked from families you haven't seen in a while, depending on where you're at in life. For some people, it might be, what are you going to do after school? Are you going to college? What are you majoring in? What are you going to do when you graduate? And then it's, are you seeing anyone? Are you engaged yet? Are you married? Are you going to have babies? Like, there's sort of this timeline that people expect us to follow that movies take shape and really re-emphasize to us in the movies we're supposed to be watching to unwind and de-stress and laugh at something not that serious could actually reiterate what we might be worried about going into.
Yeah, this like social pressure to be coupled up. And I also watched, did either of you watch Love Hard? That's the newest like Netflix.
Not yet, though. It's on my to watch next weekend list.
Oh gosh. I mean, the whole thing is based on like catfishing, which for those of you who don't know, is when somebody pretends to be someone or something they're not. And this one just takes it to like whole new levels. But then when Nina Dobrev's character like actually goes and ends up at this guy's house and realizes he's not who he said he was, then there's this weird, again, that kind of like pressure. He's like, please just like stay and pretend to be my girlfriend and I will help you get the guy you really want. So sorry to just completely spoil that whole, but again, the manipulation alone.
The whole premise is crazy. I mean, first, who flies across the country to meet somebody, surprise somebody they met online after what, a couple weeks?
No.
Maybe.
That's intense.
It's
That's
intense.
intensity.
Really intense. And then on top of that, yeah, there's this weird like pretend to be my girlfriend to my family while I help you manipulate this stranger whose identity. There's a whole double layer of that yeah, I see some red flags in the chat. Have to really just waving them out left and right here.
Yeah.
Well, and holidays are hard enough sometimes because different people have different family dynamics. Some of us are really lucky to have family that we get along with and are excited to see, but for other people, getting together in a large group with people you see once a year can already be stressful. So the movies that sort of are like, oh yeah, just like bring a stranger, it'll be fine, is not. As our one love advice is, please don't do that.
We'll be more stressed, we promise you. Learned anything from these
Only
movies.
Bring somebody home for the holidays when you feel ready. Comfortable pace is very, very important on this one.
Well, I'm seeing great comments in the chat. First from Teresa, people feel pressured to stay in relationships, even if it's unhealthy, because of what their family might say. I think a lot of people stay in relationships that aren't a great fit or who it doesn't feel quite right because of friend and family pressure, right? Am I going to mess up the friend group? Am I going to ruin a social dynamic? Ask me questions. Do I have to start all over? I think that pressure heavy on a lot of people considering ending a short or long-term romantic relationship.
Yeah. Well, this is a throwback, so some people might not get. But in When Harry Met Sally, that's like one of my favorite movies. There's all of this pressure around New Year's, and like you have to have somebody to kiss. You have to be there at midnight. Like it doesn't matter who it is. Grab a stranger. Like that is almost that like cultural guilting of you can't be alone at midnight on New Year's. It, to your point, Claire, like makes people stay in relationships a lot longer than they might want to, or like start up a relationship. This idea of like cuffing season of like you have to have somebody for the holiday, like it's almost like the winter fall, like into Valentine's Day. After that, you're like, all right, I've kind of dodged the romantic holidays for a while, but the media tells us that that's what we should do, that it's like not okay to be alone for this string of holidays.
Yeah. And I have another question in the chat. Can you still enjoy all of these while also identifying all the red flags? And my answer to that is yes. I will never give up my holiday movies or my, soapy dramas just because I do enjoy them. They are a great, thing to put on while I'm folding laundry or just to relax or to talk to Libby and Sheridan about our show is airing, which we do all the time. Absolutely. Watching these things are made for our entertainment. It's not a bad thing to be entertained by them. Just making sure we also recognize the moments where something happens and it doesn't feel quite right. It doesn't sit quite right with us. It's not something we would want in our own relationship. And being able to call that out and acknowledge it actually makes me enjoy these movies more sometimes because, part of the fun of it. It's not something I'm aspiring to maybe, but I'm having a lot of fun with nonetheless.
And if you have some people in your life who know the 10 signs, like sometimes the three of us will watch shows or movies together and like be like live texting, like, hey, did you just see that intensity? Did you just see that manipulation? So it's it's a silly way, but it's another way to enjoy it, of just like challenging yourself to pick out the unhealthy examples. But we also have some great healthy examples that we can end our live on to give us some real relationship goals, not these.
Well, I will say, Libby, throw a little wrench in the plans. What if we talked about some healthy examples in Disney movies? That's my go-to example for ways that I can still enjoy movies and content in general, while also being able to talk about things in a really low-key, low-stakes way, particularly for somebody looking to start this conversation with younger folks in your life. Disney movies are actually a great place to do that. And Libby and I have this conversation all the time.
Well, you know what example I'm about to give now that it's winter time, and that would be Frozen. Frozen, if you want to start a conversation with if you're like going home for the holidays and you have younger cousins, or like really you just want a great movie to watch, Frozen is a great one because we have Anna and Kristoff, who are such a wonderfully healthy couple who move at a I think they probably show all of the 10 healthy signs, but especially for a Disney movie, there's some great comfortable pace going on.
Yeah, and I know we've talked mostly today about romantic relationships. I want to throw out there that friendships can be healthy and unhealthy too. So examples of cartoon like friendships that I love, Finding Nemo and Finding Dory both come to mind. I think that all the characters interact, it's really honest. It's really, they take a lot of responsibility when they do something wrong. It doesn't mean that they don't do anything wrong. We want to be really clear. That's not the definition of a healthy relationship. People are going to do unhealthy things, but taking responsibility for that, moving forward, being honest and vulnerable are all really important to maintaining that. So I would say some good, healthy friendship, familial dynamics. That's a great place to start.
Another one that's a little bit newer that I watched recently, Onward, about the two brothers. We see them struggle to establish they didn't have such a healthy sibling relationship before, and now as they're on this quest, they're trying to have some healthy conflict. They're trying to be honest and have fun, and really navigating, thinking about like what does their independence look like while still being a family. So that's a great one to kind of to pick through. They didn't start great, but they grow a lot throughout the movie.
Well, in that vein, Toy Story is another one for friendship. Buzz and Woody, they don't get along in the beginning, right? We see Woody do a lot of really unhealthy things and eventually come to realize they made a mistake. They apologize. They take responsibility for that. So, that's one of my favorites. I'm very excited the new Lightyear movie. Have to throw that out there.
Ooh, that's exciting. Yeah, I feel like I learn about a lot of my pop culture from you too. I was like, I didn't even know there was a Lightyear movie coming out. I
Oh,
feel
there
like
is.
behind Disney lore in general, but I do have to say when I was just racking my brain like what is a Disney example I can bring? And mine is like the oldest of old school, but The Lion King. I always think about like
Yeah.
Timon and Pumbaa, like they're having fun. Like they're dancing, singing, they're having a great time. I think that Disney does a really good job of adding those like, relationships should be fun. Like yes, they have their unhealthy behaviors at times and like you can be dissecting for like healthy or unhealthy, but a lot of the characters are just a good time and like they have fun together.
Yeah, and they have some great friendship examples. Their romantic relationships have some room for improvement, but their friendships are strong. Should we source to the chat really quickly? Do any of you have what are your favorite examples of healthy or unhealthy relationships in the shows you've been watching?
Yeah, would love to hear what everyone has on the TV in the background or something that they've been enjoying. Um, we gave a wide variety of examples here, but definitely did not cover everything.
I'll give you a minute. But one that I want to flag, and this is a shameless plug for our own Sheridan, in a blog post that you wrote recently, Sheridan, but Ted Lasso, and thinking about, like, I sometimes have a hard time talking about different examples of taking responsibility because we don't see it in the media. Like, nobody apologizes. Apologies are hard, and it just gets sloughed off. But you wrote a great blog post about a lot of different examples of taking responsibility in that show. So if anyone wants to learn what
Well,
it's like.
I will say, if I'm, shouting out our wonderful blog post, there's a great article we currently have up on Taylor Swift's All Too Well. We would be remiss if we're talking pop culture and didn't bring up her new video, which is just a shining example of unhealthy, healthy relationships. Our 10 signs are in there. And we have some great examples coming in the chat, but if you're a Taylor Swift fan, I highly recommend checking out that article, just to get some examples of things that we saw right off the first watch or first couple watches of her new song and video.
Yeah.
In the chat, seeing some emphasis for Anna and Kristoff. I'm seeing Shrek and Donkey, another amazing example. The new Gossip Girl, which I am embarrassed to say I have not caught up on as much as I loved the old one. I need to do that. So I'm really excited to hear that there's some good examples I can look out for there. And then Miranda and Carrie from Sex and the City have one of the healthiest relationships on that show. I love that. Another friendship, always being willing to have hard conversations. That is a really, really great example. And there's more Sex and the City coming out soon. So things to be on the lookout for something that we can continue to watch and enjoy.
I feel like I'm constantly adding things to the list. My head will explode. Whew. I've got to put some time into my watching this holiday season. I was gonna say, I think we're almost at our time, sort of. Oh, the old man and the kid and up. Oh, that's a good one.
Oh, that's a great one. That is
Yeah.
a really healthy. And I think it's also like these examples are great because it's easy to fall in and just talk about romantic relationships, which like we did for most of the time, but there are really healthy friendships, and Up is a great intergenerational friendship, which I love.
Yes. So we would encourage you, keep a lookout for that. Like we said, friendships, family relationships, all sorts of things that we can see and watch and apply these 10 signs to. It does not have to be exclusively romantic relationships. And, hopefully we'll come back for part 2 soon to do some just healthy examples across all this in pop culture. Because my mind's spinning now about all the things I could bring up for healthy.
Mm-hmm.
It's very exciting.
Yeah, and before we sign off here, I know that Libby just shouted me out, but I want to shout out Libby and Claire, who, if you're somebody who is an educator or just wants to have a productive conversation around pop culture with young people, on our education center, we actually have like a designated pop culture discussion guide that Claire and Libby put together. That is amazing. That has like friendship examples, romantic, there might be some sibling examples in there. So yes, that is an amazing resource as well as our blog. And let's see, I think the last thing before wrapping up, like if you enjoyed this content, if you want to see more, if you want to see more of us, if you want us to put out more pop culture based activities or educational things, um, you can always go to our homepage and donate. Actually, all gifts will be matched between now and the end of the year. So that means somebody, a very generous donor, has put money toward matching every gift that comes in. So we would love your support if you're able. Otherwise, please feel free to check out the blog, check out the Education Center. And yeah, I think that's it for me. Any last comments?
No, this is great. Like, definitely make sure you all keep sharing with us what you're watching. We love some good recommendations. The three of us watch more TV than we should admit. Grandma. But it's really helpful too, so that we can make sure that we're giving you the tools to talk about it.
Yes, can't emphasize that enough. There's something great that you're watching that we didn't talk about here, something brand new that's come out, something that we said that you wanted to expand on or offer a different point of view. We're always open to that. So, hit us with your best pop culture hot takes, and we'd love to have some 10 signs of healthy and unhealthy relationship conversations with you all. So, thank you to my two wonderful co-hosts for this conversation. Always a great way to spend 30, 40 minutes together. And thank you to everyone for supporting One Love, for being here today. We are so appreciative of you all.
All right.
Good rest of your Monday.
All right. Happy Monday, y'all.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.